the Naples Fire Rescue new forcible entry door, the alpha door. We're going to go through the basics of the unit so you can understand what it does and what the limitations are so it's not too damaging. All right, so we'll start with how to move it. It comes with these nice wheels and setup inside here. The big thing is that you have to make sure you line up where the pieces kind of interlock. Okay, so if you use this, you go one way, it's going to lift up, obviously. The other way, it's going to bring it down. So as you come down, you see what I'm talking about here. Now this little piece, kind of make sure each side, all four, kind of interlock into that piece. So right now it's kind of loose. Keep going until I get the whole thing undone, and then you can wheel this away. The idea is we should have this set up without any pressure on the wheels so that it's less likely to slide. Obviously, if you're on a slick surface like this and you start forcing doors, you could get a little bit of slide of the prop. So you're going to have somebody stand on the back side or whatever just to add a little bit of weight to it. All right, to put it back together, if you're going to go ahead and move it, it's just basically doing the opposite. Bring it in. Get everything lined up. So I'm getting all four pieces in, okay? And then I'm going to work it back up. See, you got to make sure everything lines up, kind of keep some inward pressure on it. Make sure all four are actually locked in before you yank it up all the way so you don't end up bending the pieces. Okay? And that's how you would move it. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about some of the basic operation, right? So with this door, you can practice doing either outward swinging doors, or if you go to the other side, you can do inward swinging doors. With it as well, if you take and you release these pins, you can actually remove the entire door off of there. And if you look on the other side, you have another set of hinges, so you can force a door either left inward, outward, versus right inward, outward. Okay, so you have the ability to do that on either side. You just have to take the door off. Obviously, the door itself is pretty heavy, so you're going to make sure you have a crew full of people. Don't try and do it by yourself because it's heavy. You don't want to drop on you. All right, from there, to set up to do practice, right? You have these setups here, so you can put wood into the door, okay, to go ahead and give it the different levels of resistance. Depending on what you're doing, there's different levels. All right, so you can basically make 6 levels. Level 1 would start off with just one piece of 1x2, okay? If you want to make it level 2, you could stick 2 of these in there. You could do 1 2x2 in there, okay? So you can make it stronger and stronger, and you have, so you can simulate locks either high, medium, or low. All right, when you put those in, you're going to want to put some type of chalk in there just to hold it snug. Okay. Okay, the idea here is we're going to end up doing a whole series on forcible entry, talking about the different techniques we can use for inward outward swinging doors, but basically let's talk about the crush zones, right? So they do give you a live crush zone set up. So you have 2 crush zones that are capable of being used, and what they do is basically have these metal inserts that go over a piece of 2x4 that's cut to fit into these 2 crush zones. You basically put those in. You can see we've already practiced for a little bit, and you build a crush zone to be able to gap the door, set your tool, and then pry it. Okay. So a couple things you need to know is on an outward swinging door, you can use this and you can actually pry against this to open your door. If you're doing an inward swinging door, then I recommend only using the 2x4. okay? And basically just slides into place, all right? As you can see, when you close that, you got a pretty big gap on there, all right? In order to make it a little bit more realistic, what you can do is it comes with spacers, all right? So you can take these spacers and basically put these on the back. You use a drill to go ahead and drill them in with a screw to hold it in place, right? So you can actually put these spacers in and make the gap a little bit more challenging. As you can see, if you come to the other side, we were doing an inward swinging door. We still got a little bit of gap there, right? So we could just build it out with more spacers to go ahead and make that gap a little bit tighter, so you have to practice that technique. All right, so you don't want to use the metal ones for an inward swinging door, okay? Only for the outward swinging door. When you use the metal pieces, like I said, you can see we've already used this once, basically crushed it and gapped it. You can take it once you get it on the ground, basically put it on your 2x4. It kind of all comes together like this. So let's talk about after we use the crush block, right? So like here we used it. You can see basically all it does is it's just a metal sleeve, and we'll have these as replaceables, okay? But basically the company says you can get about 10 crushes out of this. So basically all it does is take a 2x4, slide it in there, okay? And then it would slide into place. Depending on which side of the door you're using, doesn't really matter, other than, remember, on an inward swinging door, you just want to use the wood only. Once you've crushed it, basically you can take it out like we did here. You can see it's kind of bent up a little bit, but basically you just pull the whole system out. You can take your Halligan, smack it down so that basically everything fits back in. Okay, and then you can crush it again, flip it over on the other side, and get as many crushes out of it as possible. All right, so that is basically the setup for doing standard forcible entry. It's using these. Outside of that, everything else is all the same as far as, you know, and like I said, we'll make another video just talking about these things. But once you create your gap, getting behind it, and then forcing the door either with your ads or your fork. It doesn't really matter. It's all, you know, preference on what you got. So that's that. All right, so another feature of the door is that we can practice through the lock techniques as well. So you have a standard deadbolt, right? It doesn't really come through, but you can at least practice if you have an A-tool. You're taking this off, okay, you can use your Halligan, get behind it and smack this off. Basically, there's two long bolts in there to hold this on, and then you come over to the actual setup here, and we'll show you what would happen from there. So, if you had a deadbolt that was in place, right? What you're gonna be able to do is you would, after you take that piece off the front, this is what you would see, right? So you can see the throw of the deadbolt, and then basically all you can do is find this middle piece, and you can take either the little piece out of your A-tool or K-tool, or you can just take a screwdriver and basically put it in here, then you open the lock. Okay, so basically you've kept the door in one piece, basically just smash the lock off, and then you can manipulate it from here. Okay? So it lets you practice with that. The other thing too is same thing on this side. All right, you have, you know, through lock techniques. You have your mortise type lock. Right, use your technique to go ahead and pull this off, and we'll do the video just on taking mortise locks. Basically, once you pull the lock, right, again, this thing would be, to set this up, you should leave it in the outward position. Okay, so it would be locked just like that. So basically, again, the tool that comes with your K-tool, all right, you can come in and basically just work to manipulate the lock and open and close your door. Okay? So that's the through the lock techniques. Right? Like I said, we'll make a video just going over how to manipulate those tools. All right, so another feature is the cutting station, right? So we talked about real quick about how to open up the doors, you know, through the lock technique. If for some reason that didn't work, you know, one thing you can do is actually make a cut on the deadbolt or even on the mortise lock. So with this station, basically you're gonna take a piece of rebar, and as you can see, it basically just slides through the holes there. Right, slides in and out. Use these to lock these things and lock it into place. We've got 3 different stations for that, okay, to set things on. This way you can actually use your saw to go ahead and cut the rebar to simulate cutting a deadbolt. Right. Along with that, on this side, has a setup here, so you can do the same thing. You can take regular locks, padlocks, and stuff like that. So you'll have your padlock hooked onto here. So you can, and we'll do something, another video just on that. As far as having a padlock on, hooking a pair of vice grips or some other tool or rope, lifting that off, and then taking your chain, your saw, and cutting the padlock. Right? You can use the stations to actually bend this. You can bend the rebar and make fake locks. You can go ahead and cut locks and things like that. So that's another thing this does, is gives you a lock cutting station as well. Okay, another nice feature of this door is that we can actually use real doors and put them onto this prop. Okay, so if we were to get a handful of doors, what we would do is basically take that door, pull these off, we're going to be able to take these hinges, attach these on, so you have 3 of them in 3 spots. You can drill them into your door. And then on the other side, your door, okay, where this is already at, you can just place this on there. So now you have a place to put your wood to actually make the door force. So we can use real doors on this door as well. So we can practice with the door that's supplied, or we can, if we get real doors, work with those. The door is the ability to practice having to deal or contend with a drop bar. So the drop bar can be on either side. If you have an inward swinging door that has a drop bar, you see I placed one bracket on there. Basically all it is, you take the brackets, find the holes, screw them, and bolt them into place. Okay. The idea is, and you have now just take a 2x4, throw it in there, and you have to contend with having to deal with trying to get past this door. All right, again, we'll go over techniques on how to get there. The same thing can happen on the other side. Come to the other side. All right, if you're dealing with an outward swinging door, the idea is that you're going to be able to find them by taking these same things, using the proper drill bit, drilling through these pieces of 2x4, and bringing them through this removable metal sheet on the other side. So you'll have your drop bar sitting in here that'll actually sit and hold the door from here. So you'll have to deal with an outward swinging door that has a drop bar. And again, we'll go over techniques to how to defeat those things when you see them. Okay, but like a lot of times you'll be able to notice it because you'll see the bolts come through the other side. Now the prop also comes with panic hardware. And I'm waiting for a new piece to come in because basically it's going to be magnetic. So there's basically magnets that are going to hold this in place, and it actually locks onto the jamb like this. So we'll go over techniques on how to force entry to get in and use the panic hardware to open the door by either doing some type of plunge cut or something like that in order to get through, and then manipulate the tool back there to go ahead and release the lock and get into the door. Real quick as well on this side here, right? One thing you can practice your baseball swing as well. So where you take the spike your Halligan, and we'll go over that again in the video. Where you can spike your Halligan here, and use that to do a pry of an inward swinging door. So we'll utilize that station as well. These panels, basically just sheet metal. Have magnets on them, so they just kind of lock in place there. There's 4 on the other side just because that's what we're starting. The idea is that as you're plunging a saw through here is that you got to learn your technique, make sure you're not pushing too hard to get this out of the way. But again, just using standard carriage bolts, put those through, so then you would see these 4 carriage bolts. That's an indication that there's a drop bar on the other side. So we can practice having these in place and having to use techniques to go ahead and cut these out of the way. Right? There's different ways to do that. We'll make videos just on that type of stuff. Big things I'll tell you right off the bat, as far as if you are doing cutting, if you're using these carriage bolts, you can use a saw. The problem is if you miss, you're going into the the belt. So I would recommend if you're going to do these, we can just buy some carriage bolts and we'll practice cutting them where we're not going to damage the door itself. So we'll show you the other techniques on how to use your hand tools to do that. With the doors, the other thing, it's not built for battering rams and stuff like that. It doesn't mean you can't go ahead and sound the door. You should be using your proper techniques. When you're sounding the door, notice if you look right here, right there's 3 different spots on the door. You want to hit where you see these X's. Okay, that's the best place to hit it. It's a little bit more reinforced. Try not to hit it in other areas of the door, where you're damaging the door. The other key things too is when you're using your techniques is not to leave, like if you're going to pry something, that's fine. Pry it just like you would. The idea is that it gives you the feel that a real door should give you to a certain degree. But don't leave tools in there. Don't jam a wedge in there. Don't leave a tool in there for any length of time, because the door is designed to flex like a real door. But if you leave it in place for too long, you'll actually warp the door, and then we don't want to do that. All right. So use your techniques. Do what you got to do to get in. But just be smart about what you're doing. If you're not sure, this is the key thing at the end of all this. If you're not sure, call somebody who knows, right? Call a training bureau. Somebody will come out and show you how to use the door. We're going to go out and show you how to use the door, and coming here real shortly. But again, if you don't know how to do it, don't do it until you get instruction. Okay? Thank you. Okay, so another thing we can practice is actually making attacks where we're going to pull the hinge. Okay, so the door in 3 different spots has holes in it and is set up. So you see the 4 holes that match up with the holes on this is heavy duty, commercial hinge, right? But basically all you're going to do is basically line this up with these holes, and you can, if you come over here, you can see from the inside, right? You're basically just going to put the screws through there. You don't have to, on this side here, you can take a 2x4, place it in there and actually screw it in there so it kind of holds it in place. But on the far side, you're basically just going to let the screws sit in there. Okay. Once you have it in place, then you just basically close the door, and it should hold it over on this side. Once there's a screw in it, it'll hold it in place, and now you can actually do your hinge side attack on it. So again, another station that we can work with. So these are all expendable. They should last pretty much long. It's the bolts that'll end up, wood bolts and things like that. They'll end up, the screws, the wood screws will actually just be demolished. It's no big deal. You just stick another one on there and you're good to go. Door is heavy steel, stuff like that. Obviously, in areas where you're going to be banging on it, it's going to take a little bit of a beating. So we do have some paint that came with it. We'll replace the paint as we go. But after you use it, if it's going to be stored for a little while, you're not planning on doing training anytime soon, go ahead and we'll touch it up with the paint just to keep it from rusting. So that's pretty much the only maintenance we have to do. Is just don't abuse it, don't hit it in places that it's not supposed to be hit. And then, dab the paint on there, make sure it stays as rust-free as possible for as long as possible. Okay, thank you.